In this lesson, we're going to be talking about what is the best negotiation strategy. We're going to talk about doing your own cost breakdown. We're going to talk about this concept of don't leave money on the table. And then we're going to talk about terms and how you can use them to your advantage. First is cost breakdown sheet. So most people that I've observed come over to Vietnam and meet factories, they do not have a cost breakdown prepared in advance. My advice is to do exactly that. And don't ask them for one. They do not want you to know the exact cost breakdown of everything on the bill of materials, because that just gives you power to try to negotiate the price down. So prepare yours in advance. You can search online and find cost breakdowns of existing products that are out there. And you can start with your bill of materials in your tech pack and just go down each item one by one. And then try your best to either guess or find out for sure what each individual price is for the fabric, for the buttons, the trims, accessories. And the ones that you don't know, just be prepared to ask the factory. And that's also a tip, is that during the negotiations, or when you first meet them, kind of catch them off guard and just ask them straightforward. What is the price for, like bring a button with you, for example, and just say, what is the price for a button like this in Vietnam? Or bring your fabric, and say, what is the price per meter for this fabric if we were to buy it locally? And if they're, depending on who you talk to and how knowledgeable they are, they might be forthcoming with that information and then write it down. That's super valuable. The idea is you want to fill in as many individual prices as you can, and that becomes your cost breakdown. And another tip is you can contact suppliers in advance. So before you meet the factories, contact suppliers in China or locally or in Vietnam that are selling zippers, buttons, fabrics, and ask them, how much does it cost to buy 5,000 care labels? Or how much does it cost for this particular zipper? And the suppliers will tell you. And then you can fill in your cost breakdown with that information and the exact supplier name. So then when you're talking to the factories and you're trying to get more detailed information, you can show them, oh, here's this fabric from such and such supplier, and their price is, $3 per meter. Are you able to source this fabric at a better price? And see how the conversation goes. And maybe they'll be forthcoming and giving you alternate pricing, which is very valuable information that will help you in the price negotiation process. So early on, when I first got into this business, I learned this concept of don't leave money on the table. And the idea is, or the question is, should you give your target price or not? And the advice that I was given is never give your target price. Because if you give your target price at, say, $3 per piece, but the actual price is $2 per piece, the factory will say, oh, our price is $2.50, in which case you'll be happy because you just saved 50 cents. And the factory's happy because they just made 50 cents. Whereas if you don't give your target price and they'll tell you, oh, our price is $2.10, knowing that the price, their target sale price is $2, and they're assuming that you're going to try to talk them down from $2.10 to $2. But the assumption here is that you're starting off small. And when you're starting off small, my advice is do give your target price first. And that's why in a previous lesson, we talked about reverse engineering your target price based on your retail price and your markup. So go into the negotiations knowing what your target price needs to be regardless of what the actual factory price is. After you've done a couple of production runs and gotten price quotes from multiple factories, you'll quickly learn what the market factory price is. But in the beginning, you're negotiating blind. So at least go in with your reverse engineered target price based on your retail price. Another trick is if you know your China price and then you come to Vietnam, my advice is give your target price as the China price minus 10% and start from there. Whatever you do, don't hesitate and be confident. If you decide that you're not going to give your target price, just immediately answer their question when they ask about your price by saying, please give me your target price first, and say it with confidence as if it's not negotiable. But the risk that you take is if they think you're too small, then they'll just back out. They'll just refuse to quote price and not want to work with you. But if you decide to go ahead and give your target price because you've done your homework in advance and you know you're doing small quantity, then very confidently, very quickly, just say our target price is XYZ. And then the factory will very quickly know if they can meet that target price, if it's realistic for them. And it will help just get past that whole point of contention about the target price. And if the factory deems that it's worthwhile to continue the conversation, they will. So you definitely don't want to leave money on the table, but it really depends on how much firepower you have in terms of quantities. And another thing that I was taught early on is that in business, it's always about the price and the terms. Every deal has price and terms. And more often than not, the terms are more important than the price. So how to negotiate price? Prepare your terms in advance. Here are some common terms that are negotiable, can affect the price, and help you get what you need most in the deal. So be prepared to negotiate your terms like delivery dates, deposit amount and breakdown, your quality control standards, penalty conditions, paying for samples, and outsourcing. So quick note on the outsourcing, most factories will overbook themselves. So they'll always want to be operating at 100% efficiency or 100% production capacity in order to maximize their profits. Often what they'll do is they'll book themselves at 110 or 120% of their capacity out of fear that one of their accounts or clients will reduce an order or cancel an order, and they'll be stuck with free capacity with no orders to fill the gap. And so if you're willing to allow them to outsource, that is a term that you can use as leverage in the negotiation. But you want to be very clear. So you can say, first you can ask them, will you outsource my production if it looks like you can't meet the delivery date? Most factories will say, no, we don't outsource anything. We do everything in-house. At that point, you can say, well, if something happens where you're not able to meet the deadline and you need to outsource, we're open to that as long as you tell us who you're outsourcing to and you allow us or a third-party inspection company to go in and check that outsourcing company. At which case, the factory will basically just say noted, and in their minds, they'll appreciate that, and they'll just know that it's an option for them as long as they meet the conditions. Of course, you're going to have to pay very close attention, and basically, if they start to say that they can't meet the delivery deadlines, then you can start pushing back and say, well, hey, let's outsource to get this done on time. And every factory can outsource. Outsourcing is very common in all manufacturing countries. So my advice is talk about it beforehand, put it in the production contract, and use it as leverage in the price negotiation process. So in summary, do your own cost breakdown as best you can. Have it prepared before you go into the meeting. If you're doing small quantity, then give your target price confidently. Prepare in advance for all the terms that you're willing to accept or that you want before you start the price negotiation strategy. In the next lesson, we're going to be talking about how many contracts do you need. See you there.